Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down all of the ranged DPS specializations in the Midnight Beta in its current iteration and how powerful do they feel. There's going to be a little bit of commentary added and tied to every specialization as well, related to complexity, pruning, and maybe overall vibes, so you can really get a good idea of which specialization is going to be the best fit for you. And do understand that this tier list is basically going to be modulating anytime there are changes. I'm likely going to be relaying and updating this tier list, so if you hit the subscribe button, you'll always know where the specialization is as far as rankings before the expansion ultimately goes live, so you don't feel like you're locking yourself into something that might get incredibly nerfed right when the game comes out, or something that might just be a total flop in regards to playstyle. And as always, if you want to make sure you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then hitting that subscribe button is also a great idea. But let's get started here with Warlock. Now, Affliction Warlock is changing pretty substantially. Your soul shard spender is now unstable affliction, and it will stack on a single target multiple times. Haunt has a lot more emphasis put into it with its apex talents, and Shadowbolt will transform into Malefic Grasp, basically, which is the channeled ability from Mists of Pandaria. Affliction is still very difficult. I'm honestly debating whether I want to say it is the most complicated specialization of all of them. So if complexity is something that you want, then Affliction will be where you want to go. If it's not, then it may be something that you want to avoid. It still has a decent amount of keybinds. It's going to be a lot of maintenance as far as like keeping up buffs on the target. It's going to be a lot to deal with, but some people want that, some people don't. But it is important to note that for yourself. At the moment, as far as tuning, it feels decently powerful. I will say a lot of its damage right now, I believe, is in the spell Dark Harvest, which is this new channeled ability that just hits all of your dotted targets while you're channeling it. It can absolutely melt an entire team. And with the current, aim of the game and the playstyle of the game, which is supposed to be more oriented towards sustained damage, spending less time at 100 or 0% HP, Affliction should theoretically fit very well into that meta, regardless of its current situation at the moment. So for me, I will say Affliction is probably about an A tier. Now, with a lot of these ranged DPS, what you'll likely experience if you're making something on the beta off the basis of this tier list is that you'll just get absolutely crushed by Unholy Death Knights, and that it doesn't matter what you're playing, you're going to get crushed by an Unholy Death Knight right now. If you want to know what the melee DPS rankings are, I will have that linked at the end of this one. But do note that if I put something like Affliction on A tier, and he said Affliction was A tier, why did I get owned? It was probably an Unholy Death Knight that owned you. But it's a very, very solid pick right now if you're interested in complexity. It's one that I'm probably going to be thinking pretty heavily about selecting as one of the first ranged DPS for me. Demonology Warlock. Again, I don't know how Warlocks are getting away with this. Similar to Affliction, you're also able to get Howl and Coil at the same time. Warlock has probably the most crowd control of any spec. Every other spec lost CC, usually in some capacity, and you actually gained CC, because Demo can now talent into an interrupt as well as a stun from their pet. So as far as like utility goes, damage output, it's very viable at the moment. Some new stuff with like a demonic tyrant that's melee, so hopefully maybe it won't bug out and not just randomly start casting stop casting at people. Maybe that will help you out a little bit as far as power is concerned. Similar to Affliction, I do think it's like a moderately high level of difficulty, maybe lower than Affliction as far as like overall maintenance between what you're doing. But I would say the Demonology is probably somewhere in here with Affliction as far as viability, plus or minus. They're very close. It's almost indistinguishable, at least for me at the moment. And the beta testing is still kind of limited, and there's some players that are bug abusing. So sometimes you see a spec do really well, and it's like, oh, he's bug abusing with his gear and his item level scaling. And it's like that data is kind of thrown out the window. So it's a little bit rough, but for me, it's almost indistinguishable. Main advantage of Demonology, though, is that you get Mortal Strike as opposed to Affliction, so that does give you more variety as far as classes you can play with. And when we're talking about like solo world content as well for PvP, I think Affliction might be a bit better because Drain Life's a little easier to fit and slap into the rotation than it is for Demonology, so it gets a little bit more survivability in that regard, and survivability is really high. So if you're interested in like world PvP at the start of the expansion, I think almost any of the Warlock specs are going to be a really good option for that, just because of how tanky they are and their shields, and their damage output is good on top of that. So just really well rounded, and their crowd control is out of this world. So Warlock in general is really good. You probably almost wonder why I'm not putting them on S tier. Maybe I should honestly put one of these on S tier. Do I put Demonology with how much CC and damage it has? Again, you'll get absolutely crushed by Death Knights. Death Knights are just on a completely different tier. Maybe I'll put it a little bit higher. It's very hard for me. But for Destruction, Not really a lot is changing. Shadow Burn is now an actual execute, and they did buff it recently, so hopefully it'll keep getting buffed so it actually is an execute like it used to be, as opposed to just like spamming instant spells all the time. You don't really get to do that. You're gonna be casting Incinerate and Chaos Bolt a lot more than you did previously, but its damage output is very solid, even despite them wanting to transition the meta into a sustain oriented game where like a burst class like a Destro you would expect to not be viable. Its current tuning actually is very valuable, and it's definitely benefiting from the howl and double coil as far as being able to peel for itself more effectively, to be able to get casts off, and with the slower pacing, ignoring Death Knights, you get more time to actually think about what you want to do next. So I think for me, like, these are almost all indistinguishable. It's a very close race and very niche between all of them as far as viability, but it just feels good to be a Warlock right now. I don't think like anything here other than the crowd control or elements, but who knows if they're even going to nerf that, if they're going to be prioritizing PvP changes or not, because usually the main PvP patch for an expansion nowadays in the expansion cycle is like the first patch after the release of the expansion. I think the reason they do that is because the PvP balance can be decent, but not 100% dialed in at the first week of the season because there's no rated season start yet. All right, you get a week to see what people's testing and battlegrounds are like on live servers, and then the rated season starts and MMR is deflated, so people can't really like skyrocket through the ladder and abuse anything that might be broken, and then you can fix it in. I feel like with how they've had to release expansions faster and faster, that's probably the only way that they can actually do this and get everything done. So these guys are probably just all really solid at the moment moving forward. But again, if anything related to PvE could potentially get you completely squished, then it might be hard. Beast Mastery, I'm putting on S tier. This is the easiest to play free win spec in the game. I'd say that it's very close to as overpowered as Unholy Death Knight, and they've simplified its gameplay a lot with Barbed Shot, not requiring the stacks to track anymore. So like it's even easier than it was before, and it's doing even more damage than it did before. So this is a really good pick, and I think a Freezing Trap is a really strong crowd control at the moment, given all the crowd control changes and the removals of the third DR and things like that. I think that Hunters benefit significantly from it, and then if your damage is good on top of that, you're going to be in a great spot. So for me, Beast Mastery is like, that's the go-to if you want something that's easy free win at the moment, at least on the beta. Have to wait and see. I do think that I'm pretty sure BM Hunter was looking like overtuned or something in PvE, so maybe it won't continue to be the case, but on this list right now, it definitely is. Marksmanship Hunter, another one that's actually surprisingly still really good. They started off with 3-second aim shots. I think it's been brought down now to like 2.3-second aim shots, and it's just doing big chunky damage. It's very similar basically to the War Within as far as its ability to do damage. One major loss, at least though, for Hunter is no scatter shot, no root, so your ability to peel attackers a lot more limited, and no knockbacks either. So no knockbacks, no scatter, and no roots makes it very hard when melee ultimately do get on you. And I could see that being a little bit more frustrating, but its damage output is carrying it really hard. I think for right now, I'll put it on A tier. I think Beast Mastery, just due to how easy it is and how instant cast it is, it's going to be a lot easier to pull off than Marksmanship Hunter, but they're both kind of easy as far as keybind density is concerned, and their damage output is remarkably high. Devastation Evoker, not a huge amount is changing for you. You're getting new abilities that transform your Azure Strike into Azure Sweep. You get the ability to Deep Breath and then Deep Breath again, which looks kind of cool for Devastation, but it's basically the same gameplay. You fly around in a circle and spam Disintegrate, so it's still very easy. Although I say Beast Mastery is a bit easier, but this is very close second. I don't know if I'd say it's as strong. It doesn't seem like it's completely unviable, but I don't know why I'm feeling like I want to put it on B tier at the moment, a little bit lower. I don't know if it's just because of the less crowd control. The thing is Devastation could end up being very good because it's very good against melee DPS, and in the first season, melee DPS tend to be stronger because stats are lower, most notably haste, so cast bars are slower, so melee can be more disruptive. And if melee are more popular, Devastation ends up being like this counter in the food chain and can actually be really good. As far as 1v1s though, like world PvP, I don't think it's that great. I think that it's going to have a pretty hard time with a lot of the specializations at the moment, mostly due to their consistent sustain. You don't really have a lot of that. So I think B is probably a better overall ranking for it. Devourer Demon Hunter, and I remember to put it on this list. Okay, I know I forgot before, but I got an icon for it now, and it's the hero talent tree because I couldn't find the spec icon, so whatever. But this is Devourer Demon Hunter right here. Devourer Demon Hunter, I think, is going to be really good at 1v1s, really good at duels. But at the moment, it's bugged, and it can't queue arena. I don't know how long that's going to be the case like that. If it goes the entire beta and their new spec literally can't queue the mode, that's going to be very disheartening as far as like what are they going to be able to get done as far as like PvP testing and PvP tuning, because you literally can't queue it. You try to queue shuffle, it doesn't work. So the only testing that I've seen from Devourer is duels. It's really good in duels. It has the biggest one shot of any spec, but you don't really want to be in that position, because Blizzard, if there's one thing in PvP that they are usually very good at least at the beginning of an expansion or a patch cycle, is just completely obliterating one shots. They don't let them stand. Although again, can be proven wrong with the current patch in the War Within, with Marksmanship Hunters doing that, and Destruction Warlocks doing that. But I think it's mostly just because of the need to prepare the next expansion that they're kind of just like, it is what it is now. But usually, and I guess that will be a good sign as to whether or not, like, how hands-on are they going to be and how much are they going to be putting care into PvP, is how fast they remove things like that. But at the moment, I'm a bit concerned because there's a lot of bugs in the beta with item level scaling and crafted gear and embellishments, and people one-shotting with that, and Devour Demon I can't even queue. So for me, I think if you're a dueler or world PvP, which is what I want to focus on at the start of the expansion, I might level Devour Demon Hunter literally as my first spec, because it's really fun. It's flashy, lots of mobility and big animations, and hits really hard when it comes to dueling. So I'm going to put it on A tier, but if it came to Arena, I honestly think it would perform less. It would be less potent. I think it'll probably fit as an enhanced shaman, but world PvP and dueling, which is all you can test on it, I'll say that it's A tier. Elemental Shaman is very meh at the moment. It just got obliterated with nerfs within like the past week and a half, and it just doesn't do enough damage. I like that they simplified it. It feels like it's very hard to get enough lava burst procs, so you end up just being stationary, casting this slow lava burst. It feels like an aim shot, but it doesn't hit for nearly as hard. So oftentimes you just feel like you're just stuck in the mud and you can't really do anything too exciting, and its damage is just not felt that impactful at the moment. Now maybe there are some other builds that I didn't try. I didn't try Tempest. Maybe Tempest has a good build there. As far as dueling, I think also you're very weak. Just the healing you do is low. Like, Havoc Demon Hunters basically just healed themselves to full when they I-beam, which is crazy to me, because Ellie can sit there and cast Healing Surge and won't even bring itself from like 1% to 50% over like 10 seconds. So there's some discrepancies as far as, you know, what spells they nerfed to not heal for anything and other spells that don't, but Ellie just feels like really not that good right now on the beta. Boomkin. Honestly, it's very tanky. Its bear form healing seems to be very noticeably tanky. It's basically the same as the War Within, except that Eclipse is a keybind now, which honestly I think could be considered to be stronger because you can chain them together a lot easier without needing to cast. But it's going to be the same build up Star Surge, Trent Star Surge spam as far as I can tell at the moment. It's kind of just average in duels. I wouldn't say that I haven't seen too many Boomkins doing amazingly hot with it. I'll probably put it like B tier at the moment. B for Boomkin. We'll have to see. I think with low haste also, it'll be hard to get cyclones off, and its 1v1 is not that hot. So like across the whole board, that's why I'm thinking about playing Devour Demon Hunter first, because I want to be world PvPing at the start, because that's basically all there is to do. You level world PvP and BGs for the first couple of weeks. So that's honestly the best time to do it, because it's when everybody's there. You know, it feels like a battle royale where everybody's dropping in and doing that. So for me, I'm going to be picking around that, and I'm trying to consider all those aspects. I'll probably make tier lists that separate them in the future, but this is like an overall one that I want to keep going. I think Boomkin, it's fair to say Boomkin's about B. Shadow Priest I think is really good right now, and maybe I'm taking a gamble and putting it up here onto S tier. Again, if you find a Unholy DK, it'll get completely obliterated, but that's just Unholy DK things. Without that, you do a lot of damage. I think Siphon's super effective. You slot into the meta of sustained damage really well. You're still very tanky, except against Unholy Death Knights. You did lose the stun, which will be felt, but you get lower cooldown silence. You get Roots Off Fear as well that can help with melee DPS now that you didn't previously have. It's very easy to apply dots and get your burst going on the beta with the Tentacle Slap, and it also with the fact that it applies Shadowward Madness, which is now Devouring Plague. They've renamed some of your abilities and gave you new animations, which are pretty fun to check out. Its dueling is really good. I think S tier is probably a fair spot for it. Fire Mage. Mage is, I put it last here on this list because there's people on the beta that just bug abuse on Mage more than anything else for some reason. So I have to like constantly inspect them between rounds and see what their gear was like, or in a duel and see what their gear was like. But regardless of that, combustion on Fire Mage is absolutely destroying people. It's just basically the War Within between Marksman and Fire Mage with that regards, like as far as how much burst you can do. You're still decently tanky. Good 1v1. You've lost obviously a lot of utility though. No knockback I think is a big one when it comes to like world PvP situations. But the 1v1 is still really good on it. The arena gameplay is still really good on it, but it's basically just run around until you have combustion. So again, if their goal is to change the game to sustain damage and less emphasis on cooldowns, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on a lot of these specializations, and they need to get the bugs dealt with and tied up, because this one I kind of want to say is S tier. This might be a bold one, but and again, maybe it's biased because I see fire. I'm going to play some Fire Mage today, actually, and get firsthand without bugged experience on it to see if this is 100% for sure. But from what I've observed, I feel pretty confident putting it up there. Frost Mage, your damage output, really solid. You are going to notice like the utility loss, though. This is just the same across all mages. But you're still very tanky, even with the damage reduction loss from Greater Invis, which now you can use Invis as an opener, which... before you wanted to save it as a wall, now you can actually use it to sneak up on people instead. So it shifted its niche use, and you can start fights with like a polymorph and get kind of more of a guaranteed start than you did previously. And I feel like you're still very tanky, even regardless of that. Snowdrift gameplay I think is going to be pretty mandatory though in PvP situations. I think for Frost I'll put it a little bit lower than Fire. I think that Fire's burst is just extraordinarily out of this world compared to Frost, but it's not an unviable option. Arcane Mage, again, this is one where I've seen some mages bug abusing with crafted embellishment gear, and their barrages hit for your entire health bar. But then when I played it, it didn't feel that insane. It felt just kind of meh. So like, I don't know where to put this because of all of that, all of the data. This one's like, if you're bug abusing, it's the best spec in the game. But I think any spec in the game, if you're doing that, is the best spec in the game. If you're not, I found it to not be too amazing. Pretty easy to disrupt, and you're kind of like a burst assassin. It's all about just stacking up barrage one shots. And again, I didn't think that's what they wanted to do with the gameplay. So there's a lot of work there that needs to be done if that's not what they want to have happen. I'm going to put it probably like here for now in B tier, just because like this one's so impossible for me to rate as far as its overall performance, just because of people abusing on it. But I think the other specs feel stronger, at least in duels and 1v1s that I've observed. But you can get this big hit one shot with multiple stacks of barrage. Augmentation is just kind of meh. It's not totally unviable. I've actually seen it a couple of times, which is pretty surprising. Not totally unviable to be down on D tier, but it's probably what the least performing spec between all of the ranged DPS at the moment. And it's basically just the same gameplay with Ebb and Might and flying around spamming Eruption. Nothing's really changed too much as far as I can tell with it. But that's my assessment right now. On the beta. Do know there's a lot of bugs. There's a lot of stuff that they are going to have to get on top of if they want to achieve the goal and the vision that they've stated out on some posts as far as pacing when it comes to cooldowns versus non-cooldown damage. But if you're up here, you're probably going to get nerfed pretty soon. Here, maybe as well. And then these guys will probably get buffed, but I don't know how long it will take, because it seems like they're still very focused on Mythic Plus and raid tuning, and maybe they're done tuning altogether. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. That's a scary thought, but we'll have to wait and see. But those are my thoughts right now. Hope you guys enjoyed the commentary, the breakdown of it. Hope it's got a better idea for you as far as what specializations to try out or to test on the beta or moving forward. But that's it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.